shut up, Savannah.
All right, so we're going to be talking about how America expands. We've talked about the progressives. We've talked about what the progressives want to do as far as fixing government and trying to make society better. And they passed a bunch of amendments during the progressive eras, the 16th, the 17th, the 18th, the 19th. All these amendments are passed during the progressive era. Another thing that happens during this progressive era is the idea is that America needs to grow. We have grown in our industry through industrialization. Our cities have grown. Everything's grown. But now we're getting to the point where we don't know where we're going to grow. And we've covered the continent. We used to have this western frontier that we don't have anymore because we've settled the Great Plains and California. And so people are interested in saying, how are we going to continue to grow? We continue to grow because we keep getting more and more people coming here and we expand west. And that makes our economy keep growing, growing, growing. Now we're full, people are thinking, we need to grow outside of the country so that we can continue to build our businesses and do better and better. And this is the age of imperialism, which you guys studied last year. So they've got to look at, are we going to become imperialistic or are we going to try to do something else? All right, the goals are to trace the development of the United States as a world power, with emphasis on, and we'll talk about next class, the Spanish-American War. Today we'll talk about U.S. imperialism and South Pacific and Central America. We'll get to later. We're going to talk about the Pacific today. You'll be able to explain the reasons for expansion or imperialism, why the U.S. is being pressured to expand, how did we gain Hawaii, Alaska, Samoa, trade with Japan and China. And then we'll look at, next class, fighting the Spanish-American War and reasons that countries gain control of territories through imperialism. Okay, there's an old quote that used to say, in the around 1900, which is the era we're talking about, and we'll talk a little bit earlier than that, it was said that the sun never set on the British Empire. Britain was, they were the dominant imperial power, and they had territories all around the globe. And so they said the sun never sets on the British Empire. Think that was true?
Never did of it.
Okay, well let's look at the globe. Here's a map showing Great Britain in this light green. So you've got Australia, you've got areas of Indonesia, you've got all of India, Burma, Pakistan, lots of Africa, some of the islands out here you can't really see in the Atlantic Ocean. You got one country down here in South America, Canada, and so if you're thinking that the sun is up about that much of the globe, yeah, because it covers the United States, and then you start moving, is there going to be sunlight somewhere in the British Empire? Yep. So it's true. They had enough territory around enough of the globe that somewhere during any hour the sun was up in the British Empire. So that's where that comes from. Another map of it. And if you look at this map, where was most of the imperialism taking place? Okay, Africa and South Asia, right? So you've got definite areas that were being imperialized or colonized. All of Africa pretty much, except for Ethiopia, is colonized. So we're going to see that become an issue with racism and other things. All right, here are the reasons why a country would become imperialistic. And we're taking it from a U.S. standpoint. And so, if we have all of this industry, because we do, we build our industry, we have some of the biggest industries in the world are in the United States. And so they want, these industrialists, these big business owners, they want new markets. New markets means they can do what? Huh? Yeah, they can trade. So a market is where you sell your stuff. So if we have new markets, like if we say start being allowed to sell in China, would that make a big deal for us? Would that be a big deal to sell in China? 1.3 billion consumers. Would that be a big deal? Yeah. And so that's what they're looking for, new markets, so they can sell more stuff. Okay, another reason would be new resources. For us, that's not as big a deal as a lot of countries were because we have a pretty large country with lots of resources here, so we didn't really need as much as others did. One major aspect we're going to be dealing with is competition, because other countries are doing it. So if we do it, we've got to compete with them to see who's going to get that territory. And the last reason for imperialism is to spread your culture. And this idea of the white man's burden comes up. Who industrialized first? Which countries? Huh? Yeah, the European countries. England led the way, France and Germany, the United States. So a lot of white countries, predominantly white countries, were the ones that industrialized first. And so there became this thinking that was kind of spurred on by Darwin, social Darwinism, that the strongest survive, it's survival of the fittest. Well, if we industrialized first, we must be the best. That's what they were thinking. And so we should then use our religion and other things that we believe in, and we should go out and share that with the rest of the world. We've got the burden of civilizing the rest of the world. And so they justified taking over lands and doing things where it was a pretty racist view, but many people believed it. So those are the ways you become, if you want to become an imperialist power, you do it because you want new resources. England needed resources. They're an island country. They go out and get them. We could go and just buy them from other countries, but then we're going to pay a lot of money. If we take over that country, then we can get it pretty cheap. And we can make them buy all of our goods, so that's new markets. And then we control it, so we're not going to lose that. We're being more competitive, and we can spread our culture. So that's the reason why people become imperialists. All right, I'm going to number you off. So 1, you're 1, 2, you guys are grouped, okay? 1, 2, you guys are grouped. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, Levi, you guys are grouped. 1, 2, you guys are grouped. 1, 2, you guys are grouped. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then I'll be your partner, okay? All right, so these are the reasons for imperialism. Now what I want to do is we'll get to it, okay? I thought I was there yet, but remember your positions here.
Wait, are we like getting a group of 2?
No, you're going to be 1 and 2 are together. So you're 1, 2, you guys are together. You'll see how it works. Okay. So now we have this imperialism going on in America, or going on around the world. One major cause of this imperialism is the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution made it so that countries had these industries that could produce more than their country needed. So they needed to find places to sell their stuff to keep growing. And so that makes it so that Europe kind of dominates the global economy because they industrialize first. Then you have these factories that are producing, and they need raw materials. And so, again, you have a need for the raw materials. They want to control the raw materials, so they go out and they take over the lands that have it. You also get a lot of pride in their countries because they are winning wars and they are dominating economically. And so this nationalism, which is pride in your country, is growing because of imperialism, which is going to be a major factor when we get to World War I, and we're not far from it. So this is all going to play a part in World War I. And another thing you're going to have is this military might. If you're going to be the dominant or even a player in the international imperialism, what do you have to do? You have to have a strong military because you have to take over countries, right? And so they keep building and spending money on their military, and their military keeps winning wars. Now, they're fighting countries that don't have in the industry and don't have modern weaponry, so they're easily winning wars. If you go into Africa and they've got bow and arrows and slingshots and spears, and they've got armored vehicles and machine guns, guess who's going to win? So it wasn't necessarily a fair fight, but it gave them a lot of pride, and so these nations think that they're very good. And then the last one is white man burden of going out and spreading our culture, helping others become more like us, even if they don't want to be like us. And that kind of exists today. We go in Vietnam, we did, and even in Afghanistan, we think people want to be more American and they'll flock to our culture. And that doesn't necessarily happen. They don't really, many of them love their culture, and that's all they know, and they don't want American culture. All right, so what I want you to do, I partnered you up 1s and 2s. I want 1s to tell twos why countries become imperialistic. So, real quickly, 20 seconds. Why would a country want to become imperialistic? You're one of them. Why would a country want to become Yes. Okay, turn back around. Let's get back in here. Okay, so what is the biggest reason? We've had 4 reasons why countries would become imperialistic. What are they?
Market.
New markets.
Resources.
Resources.
Freedom.
Competition.
Spread of culture
Spread
and
culture.
religion.
Excellent. All right. So now we'll look at it directly from our standpoint as the U.S. We'll take through all of the different factors why you would become imperialistic. First one is new markets. This was probably the biggest reason that people wanted the United States to become imperialistic. And the people driving the idea of becoming imperialistic are the industrialists, because they want the new markets. So factories are producing more than we can consume here. Our farms are producing more than we can consume here. So if we want to continue to produce more, we got to find something. Because we don't have. Yes, we get more and more immigrants, but we can outpace that. We can produce more than they could ever consume. And this idea of the frontier also becomes a major factor. They're saying we need new markets. And we have been a country that for 100 years, we've always had a western frontier. So if we start to get to the point where we need to grow, we just move west. And that's always been the history of the United States until now. In the 1900s, the West is settled. So we say, what are we going to do now? We've always been like this. We need places to grow. And we don't have land anymore to grow on, so we need to go out and acquire new frontiers. And some people think that's a wonderful idea. Others are saying, I don't think we should do that. So it's going to be an argument. What would be a major reason why many Americans would say this is a bad idea?
Because you gotta go fight people to get it.
Okay, people are going to die. Americans are going to die for this. That's one big reason. What in our history would say this seems kind of odd that we would do it?
Because everybody moved over here because they didn't want to fight.
Many did. What was yours?
We broke apart from it.
Yeah, we were a colony of Great Britain. So why the, and when we separated ourselves and created this Declaration of Independence and did all these things, we had this idea that we think we should have a country made on law. We're going to base our country on the law and the idea of ending colonialism. That people have the power, not some distant place taking you over and ruling you. The people there should be having the power in a democracy. And so if we do it, we're violating everything we stand for. Some people believed. Others said, no, we're going to help these people. They need us. Okay, so now twos tell ones, why did U.S. industrialists want to become imperialistic? Okay, turn back around, please. So, the industrialists, why did they want it?
To control more.
Okay, control more land and get new Resources maybe, but the new what? Markets. Yeah, markets. Places to sell their stuff. Okay, competition. This becomes a fairly big debate, and even one that starts talking about U.S. security. That if we don't do this, then we're going to be so far behind that European countries will control the world. You know, we want to be able to control what goods are sold in other places and be able to have access to those markets. If Europe, who is way ahead of us, already controls Africa and most of South Asia, if they continue to do this, they're going to control South America, and then we're not going to have anywhere to sell our stuff because they won't let us sell our stuff in their colonies. And then we'll have them surrounding us and we'll be in trouble as a defense issue. And so they're saying if we don't do this, especially in our hemisphere, then we run the risk of losing control. And others are saying we are a major economic power right now. And we have bigger industries than they do. We have recently, in the late 1800s, spent a lot of money building our navies to protect ourselves because we had the money from industrialization and stuff. And we built this brand new navy. So it was one of the most high-tech navies in the world at the time. And they call it the Great White Fleet because our navy had white ships and they were steam ships and they were faster than everybody else and they had bigger guns. And so we had this high-tech navy that people were saying, we need to show the rest of the world that we are a legitimate world power. Because we had not fought a war. The last war we fought against another nation was in the 1850s against Mexico. So we had not fought a major world power in a long time, and we're saying, we've got all this, we need to show the world that we are a threat, and they can't just push us around and take over stuff.
They just go to war with somebody randomly.
No, they were saying we need to become, because they like the ideas of imperialism. If we show our strength, then the big European countries won't mess with us. Because that's what the European countries were doing. They were going out and conquering, right? So that was an issue. Will we let them continue? And will we will we make ourselves so we're not strong enough to stop them? So, those are issues they were talking about. The competition. If we let it happen, especially in our hemisphere, we're in trouble. Okay, so ones tell twos why competition pushed the U.S. to become imperialistic. Ones tell twos. Why did the U.S. feel like competition pushed them that way? Okay, turn back around. Okay. Let's see. Something new. What do you think? Yep. What do you think? Okay, well, why would the U.S. fear the Europeans under competition? They could take over what? Us eventually, and what else were we fearful of? And spreading. If they keep spreading and spreading and spreading, there's nowhere for us to go. So we're in trouble. So we're fearful of it. No, that's right. Quietly. Okay. One of the last ones here, spreading our culture. We felt that we had a responsibility to save the uncivilized, and we really focused mostly on our hemisphere. So South America, there were lots of lands in South America that weren't industrialized at all, and so they kind of associated industrialized with civilized, even though I'm not sure that makes you more civil, but they were thinking we could go and give them cars and give them the things that we are getting that make life better, and so they thought we had this burden. We had to go spread it, and it will make their life better. Okay, so here comes what we decide. Are we going to become this expansionist country, or are we not? And so it becomes an argument throughout the United States and in Congress. What are we going to do? There are many people that say we should never go out and do this because it violates all the U.S. principles. And they say we have been isolationists. What does it mean to be isolationist?
To isolate yourself from
Yeah.
everything.
To close and isolate yourself from the rest of the world. You're not trading, you're not dealing with other countries much, and that's what we had done. You know, President Washington, when he gave his farewell address to the nation, says we need to be isolationists. He warned about other things too, but he says we need to be isolationists because if we start getting involved in European affairs, we're going to be at war all the time, and we're not going to make it as a new country. And so we had been isolationists for a long time. It's definitely safer because we're not getting involved in world affairs. And so we keep ourselves safe. It's cheaper. We don't have to have a giant military and fight wars that cost tons of money. And so let's keep doing it. This is what we do. That's what they're arguing. This is how we became the strong nation. Why are we going to change it? Then you've got in the other argument led by the industrialists saying we need new markets. We're running out. You know, we have grown within, and we've grown through immigrants. We've grown through all these things, but we're full, guys. So now we need to expand, but we need to expand by going out, not by just filling up our country. It will give us a new frontier, which we don't have anymore. So this loss of a frontier, we could regain it. If we take land, we regain that frontier. We need to show the world that we are a legitimate world power. And it's going to be expensive. It's going to be, you know, us spending time fighting wars and building our military, but it's worth it. That would be their argument. Look what England's done. They are the world power now. They're doing it. We want to be the world power. We need to do it. Okay. So this is going to be the argument. We're going to see how it plays out, and we're going to try and find ways to gain some things without going to be truly, you know, a imperial power. And we do a good job for the most part, but we do some imperialism, as we'll see after the Spanish-American War. Okay, so now we're going to try to get some trade. So if we open markets and get trade agreements, that's beautiful. And now we can sell our stuff, we can expand into new markets, and we don't have to fight wars. So what we do is the first thing we do to open trade is we go out looking to expand on the Pacific front, and we go to Japan. Japan closed its whole country off. They became isolationists in the 1600s. So much so that they did not let anything but one ship come in and out of their country, their whole island nation, a year. So one ship a year. If you wrecked your ship on the coast of Japan and you washed ashore, you could never leave. They didn't want any interaction in and out. No one telling about what's going on in Japan and not really finding out what's going on outside the world. And so we go out and we say, we could open trade with them. They're not trading with anybody. And so if we start trading with them, that's a new market for us. So in 1853, so we're talking a little ways back, Millard Fillmore sends Commodore Perry to Japan with a letter trying to invite the emperor to open trade. We send 4 steamships. They sail into Tokyo Bay and they scare the crap out of the Japanese. They didn't do anything other than come in. But remember, the Japanese had been trading at one ship a year. They had never seen a steam engine. So when this boat comes in, they go back to the emperor with the letter and say, we have a letter from the Americans. And they came in and they called them floating volcanoes. Because they see these ships with steam coming out the top and they didn't know what it was. They're like, well, they don't have sails. How in the world are they floating in here? And so, you know, they just hadn't seen it. It was new. It was new technology. And so it makes the Japanese think, we better start figuring out what's going on before we get too far behind. And so a year later, Matthew Perry comes back and they sign the Treaty of Kanagawa, which is a treaty opening trade between the United States and Japan. They didn't open up fully, but they did open up 2 ports for trade. And they agreed in the treaty that they would allow shipwrecked sailors to be helped and released so they could go home. So it did open up Japan. So now we have a new market, and a country that has lots of people, and we can go to Japan and trade our goods. So how do we gain trade? What was the document that opened trade? Treaty of Kanagawa. Okay, so that's how we open trade with Japan. Okay, so 2s tell 1s. How did we open trade? Explain how we open trade with Japan. Okay. Now we've got
They're really
places to sell our stuff.
We're gonna talk about all the countries.
I'll show you. I only got a couple more.
Yeah, it's a lot.
All right. Now let's look at China. China, another humongous market for everyone. And China had a war with Japan around 1900, or actually a little before 1900, and Japan won. So that, Japan from 1850s on, they really started rebuilding. They got a pretty modern navy and military, and they beat China. Well, then that opens up, and after the war, the European powers start saying, hey, let's go into China. If Japan can beat them, we should probably be able to too. And our Secretary of State, John Hay, says, guys, let's not take over all these countries. Let's have an open door policy. Let's all agree not to conquer, but to go in and have an open door so that anybody can come in and trade. And so they had been doing these spheres of influence in China where it was a large country, so they didn't take over all of it. They would have areas where, like the northern coast, maybe the Dutch area where they trade. A little further south, maybe the British are trading in this sphere. The the Germans down here, and they all had the little spheres of influence throughout China, where they kind of agreed to trade in those areas only. Well, Hay says, let's not do that. Let's open it up. Let's have this open door policy. Anybody can come and trade. And so you get this massive influx. They agree to it. This massive influx of foreigners into China trading. The Chinese don't like it. Many of them. They have a group called the Brotherhood of the Fist, who are fighting against the foreigners. They decide they're going to try to expel the foreigners and go back to being isolationists. And so we have what was known as the Boxer Rebellion, taking place in 1900, where they killed many foreigners and tried to drive them from China. Eventually it was put down, so they did not get the foreigners out, but they did have a major effort to try and get them out. But we, through this open door policy, gained trade rights, or not rights, but just got the ability to trade in China. So we opened new markets again through an agreement. So China was opened how? Through an agreement, and it was called the Boxer Rebellion was the Chinese trying to get the foreigners out. The open door policy, okay. Yeah, John Hay and his open door policy. That's how they opened trade with China. So we're going to skip ahead so we can get done with this. Go. One more thing to do today. All right, I'll tell you about how we gain some territories that we actually keep, and they are all U.S. territories today. Obviously, Alaska and Hawaii are states. Samoa is also a U.S. territory. Yes.
I don't know, what is it?
It is a U.S. territory. It's an island in the Pacific. Samoa is like... Where's Samoa? Right.
Oh.
Yeah, Troy Polamalu. There's a lot of football players that are from Samoa. They're Americans,
I hate
and they're Polynesians from Samoa. A lot of the guys are very big, very athletic, so they become football players.
They're huge.
Mr. Wendell said Troy Polamalu is short.
He is.
Yeah,
He's
but
5'10".
Yeah, but he's
Heck of a
an
football player.
amazing, yeah. But he does
Okay.
get retired.
Now, we are going to gain some territory here.
So amazing.
So we want that frontier we talked about. We want to expand and grow. And we are going to have this ability through these acquisitions. The first one, Alaska. We kind of luck our way into this. Russia needs money. Alaska used to be part of Russia. Right across the Bering Strait, you had Alaska right there at the northwestern tip of Canada, and it was part of Russia at the time. The Russians call our Secretary of State Seward late at night. The Russian ambassador calls and says, hey, we have a deal for you. If you want, we will sell you this territory, and we'll sell it to you for $7.2 million.
Holy crap.
And so they're like, sure. He's like, I'll do it. Because he knew how they told him how much land it was, and he did it. He didn't get approval from Congress or the president, so people start blaming Seward for this terrible deal he made. He just bought a bunch of frozen land, and so they called it Seward's Folly and Seward's Icebox. That why do we buy this land that's not even attached to the United States? I mean, it is, but through Canada, and it's all frozen. Why would we want that? It turns out it's a pretty darn good deal. We bought Alaska for like 50 cents an acre. Get all these, really rich mineral resources, oil resource, all kinds of stuff in Alaska that we found that made it a very good purchase. But that's how we get Alaska. How do we get it? Bought it from Russia. Okay. So now that's how we got Alaska, and it eventually becomes a state. Samoa is one important strategic thing about Samoa that we liked. If we said Samoa's here, so if you're going from California to Australia, Samoa is a great place to stop and get food and refuel and do things.
Oh, heck yeah.
And so we were looking for a place, and so we go and send a warship out thinking we want to be able to have a base here that we can do this. And we run into the Germans. The Germans have the same idea, and we almost go into a battle with Germany off the coast of Samoa. But Mother Nature had better ideas, and they had a big storm, and it sunk both ships.
Oh.
So we didn't get to battle it out for Samoa. So then we get our diplomats together, and England actually steps in, and England is the world power at that time, and says, we don't need to fight over this, gentlemen, and then we get together with Germany and England, and we make an arrangement where we get Samoa, and they get some other Pacific islands, and England gets something else. And so we don't even fight. We just go into Samoa and basically say, you're now part of the United States.
They don't really have a choice.
Well, they didn't have the industry and the war technology stuff, and so it wasn't like we had to conquer that much.
Yeah.
And it's not like we did try to, just make them our slaves or anything. We let them have rights and do things. So it was fairly peaceful. Not that the Samoans wanted it, but they got it. And so how do we get Samoa? It's a fairly interesting deal that the world, the way it was back then compared to today, where we negotiate to get Samoa.
He told us we could have it.
Samoans weren't there at the negotiation. So it was definitely a racist view of the world, which was reality back then. That's the way it was. So we get Samoa through this deal with Germany and England. And they're still part of the United States. Then the last one is Hawaii. Hawaii was a different story. Hawaii was a country. Samoa's a country too. But Hawaii is this independent kingdom where they have a king and queen. Eventually the king passes away, and the Queen Iliukalani, didn't like American influence. We had a lot of plantations there. We still have, I think today's, at least it was last time I checked, the largest cattle ranch in America is in Hawaii. It's basically an entire island in Hawaii. They have a cattle ranch. Well, the reason is because Hawaiians want beef too, but the ships that came through wanted to eat beef, so there's a great place to have cows, and so because and Hawaii is very strategic too. Why is Hawaii very strategic for us?
It's a good stopping point halfway.
Yeah, it's about halfway to Asia, halfway to Japan, halfway to China, which we're opening trade with. And so we already had some American influence. We had very big plantations there, rich planters that were trying harder and harder to be involved in the kingdom. And so they start trying to get more and more rights from the queen. The king let them have a lot of rights. The queen steps in. When she starts to rule, she says, no, we're going to go back to the way it was. We're not going to let these Americans influence us very much. And so the planters there, the American planters, start a revolution. And the revolution eventually wins, and they get some help. They call the U.S. and say, hey, we're fighting a revolution. Can you help us? And so the U.S. Marines come and help basically defeat Queen Iliukalani. And then the American planters take over. So now we've got a nation out there that's being controlled by Americans, and they asked Congress, they said, hey, why don't you just annex us? Rather than us try to create a new nation, just annex, make Hawaii part of the United States. And Congress agrees, and so we annexed Hawaii. What does it mean to annex?
Nation state.
Huh?
Bring it.
Yeah, just bring it in, make part of. So we annexed the Hawaiian Islands after the U.S. planters had won a revolution. So that's how we got Hawaii. So we got our 49th and 50th state, one through a purchase, one through annexation. So we went out. We got new markets, right? We got new markets in Hawaii, Samoa, Alaska, Japan, and China. We got new territory in Hawaii, Alaska, Samoa. So we got frontiers. So we're getting some of these goals. Are we imperialistic?
Yes.
kind of in Samoa, kind of maybe a little in Hawaii. Alaska, absolutely not. That's what we just purchased that.
Yeah, they don't want
Okay, so we are stepping towards, kind of imperialism. All right. Now, what do you need to be an imperialist country? If we're going to do these things, what do we have to have? Large military. What else do you have to have?
Money.
Money to pay for it, for sure. Huh? Well, we have we're going to gain the markets. But what else would you need? Anything else?
Wait, what did Forrestman say?
Military.
Oh,
Navy for sure, because you're going to be doing it overseas probably. You got to supply it. And one last thing you need, which is going to be the tough one for us, is you got to have the will. Because it's a democracy, because you're going to have American lives lost if you become imperialistic, right? You send in troops, people are going to die. Is it worth it? So the will of the people matters in a democracy. We see in Vietnam, people start to get tired of sending people away to die. Unless it's really paying off, people, you got to have that will. And that's what America's maybe not going to have so much like England. They say, why? And what happens if you have a president that really wants to become imperialistic and people don't like it?
We vote him out.
We vote him out. Exactly. So it doesn't last very long. So we have that democracy. You got to have the will to become an imperialist country. All right. I have this question on the Moodle page. Okay? I want you to answer that question when you get to it. I'll show you. There's one more thing we're going to do today.
I thought it did. Like a sentence?
Huh? Just an explanation. I'm not looking for a page or anything like that.
Okay. Let's go crazy.
My song is stuck in my head.
Okay.
Can we guys, can I have like a introduction? Yeah, would that be social studies?
What?
One Direction.
One Direction?
Yeah.
Why would that be
Because
such?
they're popular.
Yes!
I need Elena Watson to come down and sign out.
Okay. Emily, we're going to sign up for our next project. Who would your partner? Who's your partner last time? Nicole? You want Nicole to be your partner? We're going to do the next project. And she's picked your topic. Huh? Okay. All right, so looking at the Moodle page, you have down here where it says, why did the British Empire, why the sun never set on the British Empire? You need to answer that question sometime before next class. By Friday for sure, because that's the end of the quarter. Now we're going to look at our second project, which is down here.
Is it easy? Oh, I got it.
Is it easy? Yeah, is it?
I think so. Yes. Yes. Who?
What?
Okay.
They're in office.
Whitney, they need you in the office too. All right, if you look at the project here, you got the next social studies project is due November 2nd, so a couple weeks. It's going to be over the Progressive Era and World War I. Your topics are the Gilded Age, which we talked about, Sherman Antitrust Act, Upton Sinclair, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th Amendments, Roosevelt. I don't have them on here, but you can also pick Taft or Wilson, the progressive presidents, the Bull Moose Party, Federal Trade Commission. You could do the Federal Reserve. If some of them aren't here, you could still pick if you'd like. Suffrage, which is what?
Suffering.
Suffrage, what? No. Women, the right to vote. The right to vote. So women's right to vote. Suffrage.
That's how to remember that.
Temperance. What's temperance?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Trying to stop alcohol.
You would
Okay. The actual amendment that's prohibition. Women's right to vote. Booker T. Washington. African American rights. With W.E.B. Du Bois as well. George Washington Carver. You know who he is? African American inventor and educator. Yeah. Came up with 1,000 or 700 some uses for the peanut. Trench warfare, Francis Ferdinand, who's a major player and started World War I, Wilson's 14 points of the war, and the peace, and then the peace treaty of Versailles, and the weapons of World War I. So any of those topics you can choose from. So talk with your partner, pick a partner, and then I will call you, and you'll give me your topics. I'll call you.
Can I go ahead and reserve the 18? My partner isn't here right now. Pretty please. Reserve it. Pretty please.
I'm going out
She
to
said you said that you would pay. Oh, I think I broke my leg. I was like, wait. I can't help
It's at home, and I have the same thing. But my little like, no, every time I have this experience, I feel like
how many tips did
Yeah, you do not have to have a partner. That's your choice.
Yeah.
You know her.
Well, it's kind of like it's a
yeah.
Either that or.
I don't know if I could never. I'll look at it.
Is that definitely like a 1A?
You're not gonna do that first.
Yeah, wait.
I think it was the theater I was doing. I'm doing the same thing for a vomit project that I did last year.
Oh yeah, Thursday. Are you guys getting us?
We'll have to see it.
Oh yeah, you weren't in practice. That sucks. Only the people that are in practice don't get to go.
Well, we're doing it.
Cross country team.
We have to do it first.
Thursday. One, we're gonna walk and then we're gonna run our course and then we're running the same person.
No, you can't.
You're gonna run to Wendy's?
Yeah, we're running the Wendy's. I'm just kidding with them.
You're walking back.
No, the bus is meeting us at Wendy's.
I don't know this. You guys are too late to get back.
Yeah.
They gotta work for it.
You seriously would
They
not.
have to run there. They have to work for it.
I feel like Wendy's is really.
No, you had to
All right. So we're going out there with Sis Kristen first.
Fine.
It's gonna be awesome running for video. That's what I do.
I'll put it on this one and do other things.
Wait.
I'm with Austin and we'll do trench warfare.
I always smell good. No matter what, I always smell good. It's like my beautiful smell.
Okay. Rebecca.
CDC.
I always smell good.
Oh, I hope it doesn't suck.
But seriously, when I sweat, I sweat. I sweat like roses or something. I don't ever smell. I pretty much it's a packed test, actually. I was looking good. So I guess you can go home and do it. I said this is a
Hey!
Josh.
whatever you think.
We're gonna do Goldman's party. Already chosen.
Yeah, that's a technical, but like the.
You want to do like the Rough Riders? That's the Roosevelt thing. When he created his cavalry unit and fought the Spanish War. Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Birdsall, is this the thing we're taking tomorrow? So, did we not put anything in this, or what?
No, I think that's just practice.
Yeah.
Okay, Rebecca Gale.
It just shows you how you start. Are you taking this one?
I didn't know Wendy's is like.
No, I have so much stuff to do tomorrow.
I do too.
Don't say I have to run to Wendy's. It's like long there.
No, we're running there.
Kara.
The 18th of
Who with?
Me.
You already did that.
No.
Yeah, I
Like
did.
an unfair Well, I
It's perfect.
Wait a minute.
18 movement project.
Yeah. Oh.
So I've already done it.
We're gonna do suffrage.
Suffrage?
For
Yeah.
3,000
With
points.
who? Emily?
Emily and I.
You win.
The other day I was trying to tell someone
Kyle.
to spell the name and I spelled it as 20.
Yeah.
10.
Who you with?
Come here. Yeah, I know.
Austin.
You knew it. I was waiting.
I'll try.
These.
Janet.
Like it'll be something.
Haley.
It'll be something so simple.
Stop you. Stop it.
It's stinking.
Were you at practice today? Did you work beta?
Yeah.
I'd give it a
I'm
laugh.
out of it right now.
I'd make it a laugh.
Woodrow Wilson. He's not on there, but he's president. Okay?
Playing with
Yeah, Woodrow Wilson.
Yeah, I saw him.
Woodrow Wilson. That's a weird name. Pierce is a weird name.
I know,
It really is. I only know one other person with that name.
I know. Here's the girl at
Levi.
she's like, can I help?
Yeah.
I was like, bro, your name is like, it sounds just like mine, but she's supposed to like
You,
black.
your mother.
I know who that girl is. That's the other girl that I
I don't even
know.
know you.
Courtney.
She, yeah, her name
Thank
is
for your stuff. We go to the not.
Already
her
chosen.
mom.
Which one were
2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19.
It's just a mouth.
I feel like dancing.
Wait, did you say two?
Two.
You want to do the name?
2.
Sure, my name.
This time to start. I
Tara, Parker, and I, Emily, oh, you don't
Is that
have
where
to
like
work.
people
Oh, you're not
sure.
Looks like
Yeah, as long as like how actually.
Why don't you
stupid.
Did you guys?
So that we can talk.
So you can like.
You know, usually people don't want you to talk while you're in there.
No, they do.
What? She talked her ears off.
Go to first.
I think it's fine.
What numbers are left?
17, 18, 19, 13, 14, 15, 3, 4, 5. I got 8.
Only 5.
5.
I got
Champagne.
Driver.
I really like Mr.
So do I. Okay. Go.
I'm just my boyfriend. I'm just texting him, and I realized I don't have his number. I think I have it in my
Dan.
I have it. My boyfriend.
You got Owen Sinclair, you got George Washington Carver, you got Streamer Side.
You just
Alright, so looking up here at the requirements, guys, you got a 2-page paper, 12 font, double spaced, and a PowerPoint or a Prezi or some other presentation teaching the class about your topic. And remember, if you want your sheets, they are right here. Down at the very bottom, it says second project. You can print that off. What? Download it. Good. Okay. Get off your lunch. You can download it. So, when we come in here on Thursday, we will be researching.
Okay.